There's some brand new information about the Avengers in a new prelude comic for Captain Marvel. We've got to break it all down and talk about all the dopeness. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. Let's get you filled in. Happy Thursday, everybody. Now, before we get into this topic, I, of course, need to shout out Jacob Nixon, who got the nerd card question correct in my Star Wars video from yesterday. You definitely know your stuff when it comes to Star Wars, so shout out to you, Jacob. We'll do another nerd card question at the end of this video. Oh, and thanks to everybody that watched the video yesterday. I know it's like not a popular thing. Like nobody cares about the Mandalorian. It's driving me crazy. Also, yeah, it's John Leguizamo, not Leguizamo. Totally called that man Leguizamo for a whole video. All right, so let's get into this, guys. There was a new prelude comic book that hit shelves yesterday, all for the Captain Marvel movie. Now, what's really weird about this comic is Captain Marvel's not in it. Like, at all. But the pages weren't blank. There was some cool stuff in there. Now, mostly this book focuses on what Maria Hill and Nick Fury were doing before the end credit scene in Infinity War. So if you're wondering what they were doing, why they were in that SUV together, this comic explains why. Now, before I get into this, I guess technically spoiler warning for this comic book, but I mean, let's be real, you weren't going to read this anyway, so here we go. Now, a good bit of the beginning of the comic explains, through exposition told by Nick Fury, that the Sokovia Accords, while meaning to be a very good thing, have actually fractured the original Avengers team, and this is an incredible threat to the safety of Earth. Nick Fury really nails this point home, just basically saying that the fact that Captain America and Iron Man are not working together and we don't have a full Avengers roster is a huge, massive red flag and a problem for the security of Earth overall. He mentions an intergalactic threat that he thinks will be coming. And you might be like, ooh, did he know Thanos was coming? And I'm not so sure about that, but we'll get to that at the end of the video. The book also then showcases what Captain America and the Secret Avengers were doing leading up to Infinity War. Now, some of this was filled out in a prelude comic for Infinity War, but in this comic, it talks about a mission they were doing in Syria where basically they're picking up the pieces of the Sokovia battle. Basically, after the Battle of Sokovia, the Earth around that area is scattered with Ultron tech, with Tony Stark technology, with some vibranium, and there's a bunch of villains that found this stuff and were making weapons. Now, this is very similar to what happens in the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, and Nick Fury even drops damage control when talking to Steve Rogers and trying to get him to make amends with Tony Stark. So during a mission like that, yes, Nick Fury does show up and he talks to Steve Rogers, you know, telling him that, hey, you don't need to be doing this small stuff. We've got that handled. That is what damage control is for. And this is really bad that you and Tony are not on speaking terms. You guys should get back together. Get the band back together, man, in case some crazy shit happens to the Earth. Cap kind of tells Fury, look, I gave Tony a way to get a hold of me. If he really needs me, he can just call. He's, of course, talking about the crazy flip phone that he gave to Tony at the end of Civil War. This phone is shown in Infinity War as well. Now, the comic then flashes to Tony Stark, who is working on his nanotech from the crazy armor that he has in Avengers Infinity War. It's a really cool scene. Maria Hill shows up and basically makes the same kind of a pitch that Nick Fury did to Steve Rogers. She explains that, hey, this is really bad for the planet, the fact that you and Steve Rogers are not back together, the fact that we do not have this full Avengers squad, major danger, not good. You should call old man Steve Rogers and make amends. Tony basically just shrugs it off and says, not today. Now, the comic then shows Maria Hill and Nick Fury sitting in the SUV talking about the mission that they had just been on and how it was unsuccessful. Now, this leads right into the end credit scene for Infinity War where, yeah, they dissolve away and then Nick Fury grabs the beeper and calls Captain Marvel with his last bit of life. Now, earlier in the book, there is a moment where Nick Fury is talking about Captain Marvel. Maria Hill makes comments about never meeting your heroes. They always let you down. Nick Fury says, not always. And then Maria Hill kind of asks him, does that mean you have a backup plan or a plan B? Because it might be really good to get that other hero back on Earth if you are really afraid of this threat. Nick Fury says, nah, if we do our job correctly, we'll never need to call her, referring, of course, to Captain Marvel. Now, I'm super curious as to why Carol Danvers does not want to be on Earth and why Nick Fury agrees that, yeah, she probably shouldn't be on Earth unless they really, really need her. But that'll probably get explained more in the Captain Marvel movie. But as far as all the information that's officially in the comic, that is it. It pretty much explains what team Steve Rogers was doing, what Iron Man was doing, the fact that Nick Fury and Maria Hill were trying to get the band back together because they're very afraid of how vulnerable Earth is to intergalactic threats without a full team of Avengers. So that's all the news there. Now let's go to Speculation Town and talk about what some of this might mean. So I think it's really cool that Nick Fury sees that the splitting of the Avengers is a really big problem. And this is something that's echoed by the Russo brothers and Kevin Feige. They have all mentioned the fact that the real reason that Thanos defeats the Avengers is that they were separated. They were not a single unit. They did not use their powers combined. And that is why Earth was vulnerable and why Thanos was able to defeat them. Now, as far as whether or not Nick Fury was aware of Thanos and what he was doing, I have to believe that he was not. I mean, he might have some idea that eventually down the line, someone would gather these Infinity Stone type things. But I think by and large, what Nick Fury is really afraid of is an invasion from either the Kree or the Skrull. And this seems to be because of what happens in the Captain Marvel movie. We know that there is going to be some kind of an invasion on Earth by the Skrulls and possibly even the Kree as well in that film. Now, if we follow this train of thought a little bit more, it actually leads into a fan theory that's been around for quite some time. Now, this theory is that the Secretary of State Ross is actually a Skrull and has been a Skrull for some time. I mean, think about it. The Sokovia Accords do monitor all known enhanced people on the planet, heroes and the like. It makes it sort of that all the heroes have to check in with Ross and be on their radar when they are active. And it also fractures groups of heroes, mostly the Avengers, making Earth vulnerable. That sounds like some kind of a plan an alien invader that's disguised as one of our heroes would do. And as I said, that's a theory that's been out there for some time. What do you think? Do you think Ross is a Skrull or not? Kind of makes sense to me. I want to know what you think. Now, I think this book also maybe hints at a reality past Avengers 4. I mean, Nick Fury and Maria Hill definitely wanted to get the band back together as far as the Avengers, and remember, it's Nick Fury himself that wants to formulate the Avengers initiative. He thinks it's very important to the security of the planet to have a group like this. And remember in the first Avengers film when that War Council peoples tell Nick Fury that the Avengers are dangerous? Remember what he says?
I don't think you understand what you've started. Letting the Avengers loose on this world. They're dangerous.
They surely are. And the whole world knows it. Every world knows it.
And so, yeah, it's obvious that he was concerned about other worlds knowing how powerful Earth was, and that was an important deterrent from dangers that could be coming to the planet. Well, after the Thanos event, after Avengers 4, I believe that Nick Fury, who I think will still be around, is going to double down on this and want to build a bigger and more badass assembly of heroes. Maybe Avengers 2.0 with all sorts of crazy powers, and the Earth will likely oblige him. I mean, you know, after that kind of an invasion and that kind of terrible happenings on the planet, they'll probably be like, you know what, maybe this Nick Fury guy knows what he's talking about. Let's get a bigger, badder group of Avengers. They might even dissolve the Sokovia Accords, make a ton more Avengers, and we'll be heading towards this place in the MCU where there's just maybe even hundreds and hundreds of members of the Avengers, something like Avengers World or the Avengers Initiative events in Marvel Comics. But that's it for the news, guys. All the information broken down for you from the Captain Marvel prelude comic and some sweet speculation about what it might mean for future MCU things. What do you think about all of this? Let me know. Do you think Ross is definitely a Skrull? Is it crazy that Captain Marvel wasn't in her own prelude comic? And what do you think is going to happen in Avengers 4? Whatever you're thinking about those things, let me know in the comment section below. Now let's check that nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what is the first name of General Ross? Not his nickname, his actual name. Answer that question in the comment section below. The Den of Nerds is independent media. We're just a bunch of fans making content for you, a bunch of other fans. We rely on support from people like you to continue to do this show and to expand our programming. Drop a like, share this video, consider checking out the Patreon or our merchandise to take your support to the next level. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.